Hello and welcome to 2024 Denver Broncos team preview. Year 2 of the Sean Payton experience features a new quarterback under center in Oregon signal caller Bo Nix. We got a three-headed backfield at least featuring Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Samaje Perine for now. Courtland Sutton, Greg Dulcich, maybe. Can he get healthy? We don't know, but we will talk about it and we will hopefully find out. All that and so much more in the next 30 minutes here. Strap in. We're talking all things Denver Broncos. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. Welcome to the Fantasy Life Show. And joining me, as always, Fantasy Life Director of Analytics and all-around baller, Dwain The Rock McFarland. And Dwain, we're briefly talking about this team before, but yeah, don't really know where a lot of this is going to go. So, bear it with us. We're going to talk about why, but they are the single cheapest offense in fantasy football, almost regardless of the position, definitely overall. And I think a lot of it just comes down to, can number 12 overall pick Bo Nix actually be pretty freaking good in year one? Because if not, could get ugly in a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, Jarrett Stidham would be the other option, at quarterback. He's had some flashes, I guess you could say. Interesting, just side story. I hung out with his quarterback coach this summer, who knows a friend of mine. He plays music and I play music. He's a really good guitar player and apparently also an amazing quarterback coach. He owned multiple state records for passing, here in Texas. So
now that's some good offseason research, Dwain.
Yeah. Oh, I had a great conversation with him, and he talks about all the things that aren't in spreadsheets. I will tell you, like we had this, it was an interesting conversation, like us going back and forth, but like going back to the Bo Nix thing, I will say, Ian, took Camden down to Texas A&M a few years ago when he was trying to decide what college he was going to go to. I took him to a game. They were playing against LSU, and it was Bo Nix versus Kellen Mond for A&M. And I'll be honest, Auburn? I never thought Bo Nix would Auburn, not LSU. Okay. Auburn. Yeah. I never thought that Bo Nix would end up turning into an NFL quarterback. The day that I saw him play, it was like some of the worst quarterback play I've ever seen on both sides of the ball. But credit to him, transfers to Oregon, really does turn around his game and kind of becomes the kind of guy that we've seen Sean Payton have success with in the past. Now, look, guys, Drew Brees is on a pedestal of his own, so we can't just compare them apples to apples because Bo Nix likes to throw the ball short, get those quick passes out. But stylistically, that is something that we have seen work for Sean Payton in the past. So really excited to see how it works out. Not sure about the weapons, though. I think we have questions pretty much across the entire Broncos offense. So looking at Bo Nix and what we're going to expect from him in year one, obviously he's going to be a rookie, so that's going to make things rough. And then the weapons, in addition to that, not expecting a ton out of this passing game in Denver.
Yeah, it really is wild to see what Nix became by the end of his, collegiate career. I know, guys, it took long enough to get there. It seemed like he was in college for at least a decade. But the Auburn wild child who was really, willing to work off script and just try to pull, anything out of his ass to make it happen. Yeah, now all of a sudden goes to Oregon. Much, much, much more content to take what the defense was giving him. And that's where that low average target depth did come into play. 86 among 89 qualified Power 5 quarterbacks over the past 2 seasons. In ADOT, he was 77th in average time to throw. Nearly 30% of his passes were thrown to targets behind the line of scrimmage. That said, Dwain only took 6 total sacks in all of last season. And over these past 2 years, no Power 5 QB scored more total touchdowns. So
what was his average time to throw? 1 second?
2.52. Yeah, it was really fast. So, but hey, man, again, it's not like he's just restricted the pocket, though. I mean, 7.3 fantasy points per game from purely rushing production over these past 2 years, very favorably to someone like Caleb Williams, who was, quote unquote, only at 8.6. So again, this idea that Nix was overdrafted by some pundits out there. Okay, I'm not saying he deserved to be in the same realm as Caleb Williams and Drake May or anything, but it does seem like, Dwain, we get these quarterbacks every now and again where just because they're overdrafted potentially in the NFL ranks doesn't mean they can't be a pretty damn good quarterback. So history of signal callers coming out this late is not good. You have Joe Burrow and then you have a lot of busts, but I don't want to hold the Auburn years against Bo Nix when nobody ever kind of brings up the Indiana years for Michael Penix or the Arizona State years for Jaden Daniels. So again, not ruling out Nix potentially being good early on, but to Dwayne's point, again, lack of weaponry, man, not looking great.
Yeah,
so,
I've got him projected for 204 passing yards per game. That's the fourth worst in our projection model. So, and that's not all on Nix. It's on some of the other things we're about to talk about.
Any sort of, last round dart potential for Nix. It is rare to see a quarterback tentatively expecting to start all 17 games virtually free in fantasy drafts.
Yeah, I mean, in Superflex, I think there's definitely a way that you're taking Nix. Super deep leagues, where you've got quarterback premium, where multiple people are going to take, everybody's going to take two quarterbacks. Those are the kind of formats where I think you could potentially get in on Nix in deeper leagues at the very end of your draft.
Bo Nix or JJ McCarthy in Dynasty?
JJ McCarthy.
Why?
I just like the weapons that are already in place.
Very true.
I mean, so I feel like Nix might even be good, and for the next 3 years might not have enough weapons around him to never even know. I think that happens to some quarterbacks. Whereas at least with JJ McCarthy, once he hits the field, I know we've got Justin Jefferson, we've got Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson once he's healthy. So I think we're going to get a chance to see with Nix, that we don't know if we have any of the answers yet at wide receiver or tight end.
No, I agree. I'm just mad. I traded up, hoping to get McCarthy in my home Dynasty league. Yeah, and then oh my God. I traded up, and then someone jumped ahead of me and traded up again to go ahead and steal McCarthy. So I had to settle for Bo Nix. So hope you and me are wrong on that, Dwayne. But no, I think that probably is spot on. Speaking of those weapons, Courtland Sutton, a little bit of off the field drama this offseason. Wasn't attending the voluntary workouts. Has been open about wanting a new deal, but he is fully expected to be suiting up this year. And he once again looks like the clear-cut number one wide receiver in Denver. If you watch the NFL's top 100 plays YouTube video, you would think Courtland Sutton is the best wide receiver in the NFL. Just one ridiculous contested catch after another. And this surprised me, Dwayne. He actually had ESPN's advanced stats 10th best open rate last year. So on the other hand, I did take the time yesterday to watch all of his receptions, and I don't want to call it a complete fluke, but there were a ton of busted coverage plays where it just certainly did seem to benefit Sutton at the end. Didn't exactly get that many crispy routes that he was creating all the separation from that I was kind of expecting to see. All that said, no more Jerry Jeudy. I mean, he did score 10 touchdowns on 90 targets last year. Why is Courtland Sutton regularly being priced outside the top 48 options at the position, Dwayne?
I think it's just because I think we've seen the ceiling of what Courtland Sutton can do as far as being a target earner. I'm of the belief you can step into a starting role on an offense and probably get a 14 to 15% target share. Then to go past that, there has to be talent involved. So I certainly think that Courtland Sutton's a talented player, but I think we're looking at a guy that's probably 18 to a 21% target share. And he's not going to suddenly turn into a 25% guy just because the level of competition around him might be low. To be honest, what has Jerry Jeudy really shown us, over his career? You could argue that the target competition was already as low, and there's just as much of a chance of a Troy Franklin or Marvin Mims getting into a larger role and being, potentially just as much of a target, just as much target competition, maybe even more than what we've seen from Jeudy, because he was such a disappointment. So I think when I look at Courtland Sutton, even though I do project him as the wide receiver one for the Broncos, we've got challenges, at the quarterback position in year one. And then we've also seen from his talent profile, just because the competition's low, it doesn't mean he can necessarily unlock another level in his game. I think he's fine as a wide receiver 3, if that's what you end up with him as. I've got him more in that wide receiver 4 range. But it won't surprise me at all if he's a wide receiver 3 this season. I think the big question is how does Courtland Sutton, potentially help you win your league? I can't get there. I can't find a way to think that he's suddenly going to be that type of player. Whereas other guys that go in that range, Ian, like a Rashid Shaheed, who I know is younger, just really started getting playing time, has flashed a little bit more big playmaking ability. Even a guy you like Curtis Samuel, suddenly playing in a Buffalo offense that what if they decide they want to be pass first again? I don't think Curtis Samuel suddenly turns into a 25% target share guy either. But I'll take 20% in Buffalo in an offense that throws more from Josh Allen than 20 to 21%, in an offense like the Denver Broncos. So it's those sort of things when I start getting in those ranges. I have a hard time finding myself leaning to Courtland Sutton, and I've rarely taken him in fantasy.
And honestly, we're actually seeing him priced up a bit more than those guys over in more traditional redraft formats. Pick 120, wide receiver 47, currently in ESPN leagues. I mean, I've noticed on ESPN and even Yahoo to a slightly lesser extent, a lot of the rookie wide receivers and guys that change teams aren't kind of getting their ADP where I believe it should be deserved. And accordingly, I mean, we see Sutton priced next to Roma Dunze, Lab McConkey, Xavier Worthy. We have guys like Brian Thomas, Rashid Shaheed, Curtis Samuel, and Jerry Jeudy going more than a round and a half after Courtland Sutton. So at those prices, Dwayne, I think I'm out.
Yeah, I think a lot of the way those prices get set, because there haven't been a ton of drafts on them to start moving them enough yet, a lot of the way they get set is based on the projections. I think the projections are a major influence on the initial ranking set that gets released that people are drafting from. So some of these things don't really evolve until we get into August and we see people, drafting more on those platforms. So we'll see if they move. But to your point, for right now, like, I think there's a lot of sharp edges you can take advantage of, especially if your league drafts early. I'll be honest, if I was still drafting on ESPN or on Yahoo, I would be trying to get my league to draft as early as possible. Even though I might have someone that would get injured, which I want to avoid, but the earlier I could get my league to draft, the better, because I do think some of these things will, they'll shape better into form as more people start drafting on those sites.
Another very affordable member of the Broncos, Javonte Williams, probable RB1 last year was a bit rough, but it was expected to be rough. First year coming back from that multi-ligament major knee injury. Are you buying a 2024 bounce back, Dwayne? Because this is a crowded backfield. We have Samaje Perine in there. For now, there have been some rumors that he could be a cap casualty, but just, it's not like they can save all that much money. So Jaleel McLaughlin is, everyone's all-star player when you don't have the pads on, in the middle of July. We also have, who is it? Blake Watson. Yeah, getting a Alvin Kamara comp from Sean Payton. Greg Dulcich got it last year. And Audric Estime, day 3 RB, who does profile thanks to his, 5'11", 221 bruising running style as a legit threat to Williams, both on the goal line and short yardage situations. So I'd be surprised if they bring 5 running backs, into the active roster ready to go in week 1. I think Javonte is going to lead the way, but certainly doesn't seem like it's a given. But accordingly, that's why he's being priced outside the top 100 overall picks in fantasy right now.
Yeah, I think Javonte was a far superior prospect than Audric Estime. Not even close, pal. Not a pal to you, but I don't know why I said that. But that was a Breakfast Club reference. But like Javonte Williams, I don't know what we expected last year. Like a guy coming off of major knee surgery comes out, and just because Breece Hall looked a little better at the end of the year and then Javonte didn't, well, Javonte started to take over like Breece Hall, and we saw them both ramped up in similar fashions. But the Broncos decided to pull the foot off the gas towards the end of the year with Javonte, and part of that could just be because they didn't see that he was completely right. His yards after contact fell from 3.4 to 2.7. His total yards per carry from 4.5 down to 3.6, and something where he had been quite a magician the year before, missed tackles forced per attempt 0.31. Way over the league average of 0.17. It fell to 0.16 last season. So he clearly was not healthy, but only going to be 24 years old this year. So he gets another year removed. I think people are getting a little bit overly down on Javonte Williams. He is actually the piece of the Denver Broncos that I've been the most confident clicking on. And when I say most confident, it doesn't mean that I'm super confident with Javonte, but he is the guy that I felt more comfortable clicking on where he goes in drafts right now. We'll see what happens in training camp. Sean Payton does have a long history of rotating backs, even when he's had good ones. So I think there is something to be thought around the potential for a 2 and probably 3 back committee. I think that's probably going to happen. Which 3 will it be? I don't think we know for sure. But right now, I'm looking at Estime as more the backup to Javonte on early down work. I think Jaleel McLaughlin right now is the starter in passing downs as long as he can pass protect better. When I say passing downs, the 2-minute offense. I think Blake Watson is the guy that could take that job from him. And then I think we still have Samaje Perine, who you talked about, who's really the guy they trust on third downs, give him a little bit of the short yardage work. So I think there's going to be a rotation. And in an offense that we're not crazy about, it does become tough to start to see a ceiling. But if one of these guys were to turn into the guy that suddenly they trusted to get more of the workload, I still believe that it's Javonte Williams because he's young. He did flash a really good profile earlier on. We just need him to recover from the injury.
Dr. Evan Porras does fantastic stuff at FB Injury Doc, and he's noted that since 2011, RBs after ACL tears improved year 2 post-op, and missed tackles forced per attempt plus 17%, yards created per attempt plus 9%, even receptions per game plus 39%. So Edwin noted that, again, Javonte, still just 24 years old, came back way too soon last year. It would make sense if we get something closer to the, again, electric rookie version that we saw just not that long ago. So rest of the group, again, Perine did lead the way in pass blocking snaps last year. It was Perine with 52, Javonte with 43, Jaleel McLaughlin just 5. And that's where the problem comes in, Dwayne. I'm not sure if Perine is going to completely nuke Jaleel's fantasy potential to rack up a bunch of catches, or if he's going to take his talents back to Cincinnati and do the same damn thing to Chase Brown. Coincidentally, this is actually a week 17 matchup, which makes it, kind of a funny last round best ball pick if you're into those kind of things. But I do think that we're potentially writing off Perine a bit too early, similar to a Jamal Williams. No, he wasn't fantastic last year. He was much better than Jamal, I should say, but they invested money in him last offseason for a reason. He had the role. And I mean, could you imagine the hype that we would have for Jaleel, Dwayne, if he had Perine's under like advanced receiving metrics? Perine, unironically, led all running backs in yards per route run last year. And I know it didn't feel like it in fantasy land, but he's the most trusted pass blocker. He's been a demonstrated good receiver. Look, I'm not saying for you guys to go out there and draft Samaje Perine. Please don't. But the moral of the story, Dwayne, is I'm just not trusting Jaleel McLaughlin to be this breakout star. He seems to me like someone who's probably going to, far more Lance Dunbar than Alvin Kamara, I would say. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair, but Jalil's still the bet you want to make. Like if you're betting on someone after Javonte Williams is gone off the draft board in the Broncos offense, I still think it's Jalil McLaughlin, like because he did flash that playmaking upside. What if he can eventually develop into being kind of that Sproles, Alvin Kamara kind of passing game guy for the offense? Not saying he's on the same level as those guys. Those were elite passing down, options. And he's still got to get better in pass pro, to your point. So I think all of those things are questions, but there was enough of a flash from McLaughlin that I want him to be the guy that I target. I'm not going out of my way to get him every draft, but if I'm in a range where I feel like I want some upside and it's hey, you're saying there's a chance, like Samaje Perine, I mean, I'm never drafting. He's a thorn in the side, like of these other players. Exactly. It definitely, can create more of a rotation. So I'm still willing to take McLaughlin, but I do think you do a great job outlining all the potential issues that could be there. The one thing I would say about this backfield is, man, like I haven't seen a backfield targeted as much as what we saw from these guys. Every one of these guys, their targets per route run over 24%. Like we have two guys like over the 30% mark. So it's an offense that got the ball to the running backs a lot. And you see that in Sean Payton offenses historically, but you also see that even more when you don't have quality wide receivers to get the ball to. And that's still a major question here in Denver. So I won't be surprised, whichever backs are on the field, to still see them heavily integrated into the passing game. And we already talked about the low ADOT for Bo Nix, who could also be very willing to check it down and get it to the backs.
Broncos league high 144 RB targets last year, 30 plus more than all but 3 other backfields. Expected PPR points per game from PFF, 4th only behind the Dolphins, 49ers, and Lions. So yes, part of that was also late career Russell Wilson being more of a check down merchant. But as we discussed with Bo Nix, wouldn't be the biggest surprise there. So again, I'm not trying to make this the shit on Jaleel McLaughlin podcast. He did only trail Jalen Ward and Tajay Spears in missed tackles forced per touch. But Dwayne, if I had to just ask people, hey, guess where McLaughlin ranked in terms of yards per catch last year, I'm guessing that they wouldn't expect him to be 45th among 47 qualified running backs. 5.2 yards per catch, man. Like, this dude was more efficient rushing the ball than he was actually catching the ball. And it's just kind of, I feel like we're almost remembering him more like he was Devin Achane or Keaton Mitchell when he just really wasn't. We talked, Dwayne, like after week 6 or 7, it seemed like his utilization was moving in a great direction. And then it fell off and he just never really got.
That was the blocking. Yeah, the blocking got him in trouble. And basically defenses were able to key anytime he was on the field. They were just trying to get the ball to him. Yeah. But that's also a positive to know that a coach is still willing to go out of his way to get you on the field and get you touches, even though the defense is going to know. I think a lot of that was still a symptom of the overall offense. I hear you on the yards per catch. Not a super sticky stat, though. Not a sticky stat at all, really. Year over year for running backs, we can see large swings. Now, if you get to like a 3-year sample on a player, that's been consistently playing with the same quarterback, then I think you could have something. But after 1 year, also Javonte Williams, last year and his yards per reception fell from 7.4 the year before to 4.9. I don't know where P. Ryan ended up with. I know he had a couple, I feel like some longer plays, and knowing his yards per route run was higher, that he was probably decent in that category last year. But I think a lot of this was a symptom of just a dysfunctional offense overall that was really hurting everyone.
Yeah, again, I was surprised to see the Piron numbers stack up as favorably as they did. Maybe I am, putting a bit too much into just kind of, again, a 1 year sample size and a not great offense. But yeah, I mean, looking at it right now, Piron was 4th in yards per reception, man. Jaleel and Javonte were 45th and 46th. So really it was crazy how that turned out. But yeah, guys, you heard me mention again some of the utilization fall off. And you can check out all those numbers for yourself. All the ADP things we've been talking about, our consensus ranks, all that and so much more with our new premium package, FantasyLife Plus. And for more on that, here's a quick word from the one, the only Matthew Berry.
When I started Fantasy Life, I had one mission in mind, really just one: fantasy football and sports betting for all. And what started out as just a newsletter has now grown into a full-fledged media company. And here I am to tell you we're ready to evolve yet again. I'm introducing Fantasy Life Plus. It's a premium product built upon a suite of fantasy and sports betting tools to take your game to the next level. I know, I hear you, really, Barry, a premium product? Okay, I understand, but get this. Our mission has not changed, right? Our newsletter will forever remain free. All of our expert analysis, free. And we will still provide sets of fantasy football rankings for free. Everything you need to be a great fantasy football manager, you will still be able to do for free at FantasyLife.com. But hey, if you really want to level up, then Fantasy Life Plus is for you. Fantasy Life Plus will introduce new tools like our Draft Champion, customizable rankings, site-wide league sync integration, player prop models, game models, DFS pick'em builders, and so much more. Seriously, just check it out. Go to FantasyLife.com to learn more. And as always, may your trades never be vetoed, may your flex plays always work out, and may your Monday Night Miracles always come through.
Thank you, Matthew. And now back to the Broncos. And Dwayne shouldn't really be expecting too much of a scheme change. I think everything we've talked about, again, new quarterback, but should be more the same with Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi back for round 2. So this is a middle of the road offense in terms of, run and pass play rate. As we like to talk about the Madden playbook, I do think this would be straight up balanced. PFF's ranking, 7th ranked offensive line, does return 4 of their 5 starters. So that, I guess, would be the allure here, is that Sean Payton gets back to being more like the offensive wizard that we've come to expect from him for the majority of his career, with a strong offensive line and making life easier for everyone involved. But any overall thoughts on the Payton Lombardi partnership, Dwayne?
Look, they're a combination that in the past, like when they have the right players, I think they've done a very good job of putting defenses in a bind. Like you go back to the Jimmy Graham, Darren Sproles years and how they would use those two players in combination to really make safeties and linebackers choose and put them into mismatches. Michael Thomas and what Sean Payton was able to do with him, essentially playing him still from the outside, but operating him more like a slot wide receiver and playing to his strengths. We saw the same thing, years before that with Marquise Colston, so he has these certain archetype players that he really likes, and he's shown that he can maximize. The question is, do they have any of those right now in Denver? And I don't know. There's no one that I can put a pin in and feel like this is a player that they could really build their offense around. So I think a lot of it's still in question. Overall, I think we should still expect Sean Payton knows what he's doing. I know he can be really arrogant and so annoying sometimes when he comes on, and he's like, I totally sent up a smoke screen, just to try to, make sure we still got the guy we wanted, or acted like we wanted this other player in the draft. And like, he's always saying stuff like that can just, you're like, come on, Sean, like, can we just let's just hit the brakes for a minute. Let's get this Broncos program headed back in the right direction. But ultimately, he's been calling really good offenses for a long time. And I don't think that it's something where the league is passing by. In fact, if he can get good quarterback play, I think he's shown us that he can run the style of offense that can work against today's defenses. Yes, Drew Brees was at one point in his career able to take these deep shots, but he had a highly functional offense, for years with Drew Brees, when really like his arm was nowhere what it used to be. So I do still respect Sean Payton, as much as he may irk me sometimes. I still respect him as a play caller. I just question, what can they make this offense revolve around? Like, it's just a huge question mark for me.
And again, there were certainly some big time lows last year. The 70-20 loss to the Dolphins early on, down the stretch after they benched Russ, seemingly more for injury guarantees and actual on-field performance. That said, at one point in the year 2023, your Denver Broncos won 5 straight games against the Packers, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Vikings, and the Browns. That happened somehow, and accordingly, maybe just maybe Sean Payton still knows a thing or two about coaching football. But whether you agree or disagree, we invite you to take your action in the betting streets over the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, all new customers who bet just $5 will get $150 back in bonus bets instantly. All you got to do is download the DraftKings app now and sign up using our promo code FANTASYLIFE. That's right. Again, new customers can bet just $5 on anything and receive $150 back in bonus bets instantly. And if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. DraftKings is the one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy, where you can join in on all the fun and have a shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Again, new customers use our promo code FANTASYLIFE. Bet just $5 on any wager and get $150 back in bonus bets instantly. The crown is yours. Speaking of those win totals and putting our money where our mouth is, Dwayne, the Broncos have a lowly win total set at 5.5 plus 105 on the over. So plus 1,800 to win the AFC West is dead last in the division. And sadly, Dwayne, it's such a low number, but I think give me the under. This defense doesn't exactly look like they're going to be in a great position, rating 27th ranked scoring defense. I don't see the additions that they made making a meaningful difference. And yeah, maybe Sean Payton can get more out of Nix eventually, but I just have such a hard, I almost have an easier time looking at the Raiders as this offense that could surprise because there are such great pieces around a questionable quarterback. And Denver, it's a questionable quarterback, questionable pieces, questionable pretty much everything. So I'm taking under 5.5 wins. Could be wrong if Sean Payton starts partying like it's 2017 again. But on the other side of things, man, we do have a guy that, took the year off, maybe isn't quite as invested as he was, 5-6 years ago. Yeah, give me under 5.5.
Man, I'm gonna take the over. I think they can win 6 games, but I totally feel you on all of your reasoning.
You're betting on 6, not anymore.
Yeah, I'm only taking this because the line is set so low. We just did the Raiders the show before, and I thought it was set a tad high. But had the Raiders been set at 5.5, I would have taken the over on them as well. It's just the fact in a 17 game season to be set at 5.5. I just feel like the bet you have to make. Look, football. It's just a very interesting game. I mean, we're playing, with a ball that's not perfectly, it's not a circle, it bounces weird. Just weird stuff happens, I mean, it is one of the more unpredictable sports year over year. And it's such a brutal game where injuries can be such a huge factor to other teams in your division. So when you get a line this low, it's just hard for me to not take the over, although I don't have confidence in it. I don't have any confidence in taking the over, just slightly more than I do in taking the under.
Remember, guys, when Dwayne and I are right, that's, what happens when you work hard and you know a thing or two about football. And when we're wrong, I mean, it's an unpredictable game. What the hell do you want us to say to you guys? So gotta love that. But as we round things out, Dwayne, I mean, there are some more pass game options here, but if we can't be all that excited about, the major running backs or Courtland Sutton, I think you guys can probably guess where we were going with this. But yeah, wide receiver 2 position battles between Josh Reynolds, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, and a finally healthy Tim Patrick. Oh my gosh, what a time to be alive. There's also a crowded tight end room with Greg Dulcich still on the mend from one injury or another. And we are unironically getting Lucas Kroll hype out of Sean Payton this offseason. So only the Dolphins targeted their tight ends less than the Broncos last season. Again, fully expecting the pass game to be going through Sutton and then the running backs probably before any of these other wide receivers. I've dabbled with Marvin Mims late, Dwayne. I mean, he's going outside the top 75 wide receivers. I think we saw enough explosive ability and just some of the coach speak from Payton talking about how they couldn't get Mims out there as much last year as they wanted because of the presence of Jerry Jeudy. Marvin Mims is the guy out of all these pieces in the wide receiver and tight end room that I would be most willing to put a chip on, but even then, not exactly making a habit about getting the second-year talent.
Yeah, it's Marvin Mims, because we know that the big playmaking ability was there in college. Is there an opportunity for that to finally shine through with some more playing time? Troy Franklin as well. I know he fell to round 4 in the NFL draft, which is a major red flag because any player can go earlier than what we expect in the NFL draft because it just takes one team to decide, we like this player. It's our guy. We're going to get him. But to fall from being a potential late round 1 pick to being a round 4 pick takes multiple teams over and over repeatedly saying, no, we're not taking Troy Franklin. So I don't want to act like it's not, a big red flag for Franklin because it is, but he did play with Bo Nix. He can operate in this quick, passing scheme. He was really good against zone in college, had some struggles against man coverage, but he's a yak monster. So Troy Franklin's the other guy. I'm willing to throw darts at either one of those guys. Now, if you're playing in a league where you're only going to draft 15 rounds, 14 rounds, you got short benches, you're probably not drafting either one of these players. It's something that you're just watching the waiver wire for after week 1.
Looking at Troy Franklin, Dane Brugler comped him to DJ Chark, said he plays similar. I see a little bit of Darnell Mooney, maybe an upper middle class man's Jalen Hyatt. Yeah, not exactly, the archetype to get overly excited about, but reuniting with Bo Nix, crazier things have happened in this wide open passing game. So we'll see on the Greg Dulcich comeback season. Again, last year he got the ridiculous Joker role hype in a similar manner as past guys like Reggie Bush, Darren Sproles, and Alvin Kamara. I will believe it when I see it. So as Dwain said, stay tuned. We'll see what happens in August and September as things start to clarify. But for now, guess what, guys? If you're leaving your fantasy draft without a member of the Denver Broncos, I don't think that you're necessarily in too bad of a position. But takes us to the part of the podcast where we go ahead and compare the Broncos to a TV or a movie character. And Dwain, I'm going with the second half of the movie Scarface, Tony Montana being Sean Payton. So yeah, there was a lot of good stuff there. People respected the balls on Tony and some of the things he was willing to do. Sean Payton, kicking the onside kick in the Super Bowl and just, again, regularly having these high scoring offenses. But now it's been a while. We got some questionable drug use going on from both parties. Payton's is legal in the state in which he was doing it, but, seems more and more reckless and more like the best days may in fact be in the rearview mirror. So maybe the new project, the new quarterback, the new scheme, the new friends is going to turn things around. But in Scarface, they didn't. And I tend to think in Denver, they probably will not as well. So what say you, Mr. McFarland?
Yeah, that's really good from you. And
Thanks,
I appreciate the dedication to actually saying, no, the second half of a movie, not just the movie, the second half of a movie. So like props to you. I'm going to go with the replacements because I feel like even though these aren't replacements, these are NFL players. Like if we were to need replacement players, the Broncos have the closest one to replacement. Now, I think you can make an argument, maybe the Giants with Saquon gone. I think it's probably an argument between the Giants and the Broncos. Like if you just look across the entire roster, who has the closest level to, okay, like these are replacement level players. They've obviously got a long road to go. And then I thought about Shane Falco and I had to look up the quote, but he says, you're playing, you think everything's going fine. Then one thing goes wrong, then another and another. You try to fight back, but the harder you fight, the deeper you sink until you can't move. You can't breathe because you're in over your head like quicksand. I feel like that is how the Broncos season could go. I feel like the Broncos season might be encapsulated by that quote. Sorry, Broncos fans, you did get a young quarterback. There's a potential that he's going to end up being your answer, but I just feel like there's still far too many other questions right now. And there's just a lot of holes that need to be filled.
PFF did, in fact, grade Denver as a single worst roster in football entering 2024. Certainly going to need some of these young guys to step up in a hurry. So we will see what happens. But yeah, thank you guys again for listening. You can check out all the other team previews exactly where you're listening to this one right now. And also invite you to subscribe to our Fantasy Life YouTube page. We have a lot of other content on there that goes past even what we do on the podcast type of thing. Specifically, Dwain and myself going over into the DraftKings best ball streets every Friday morning. So make sure you check that out. And just maybe, guys, going to have some new and improved Fantasy Life shows coming very, very soon. So yeah, again, thank you guys for tuning in. For Dwain, for producer Matt, I'm Ian. Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Life show. And until next time, take care, everybody.